Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Aquart. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Why I Left. In today's episode, I chat with Dr. Sugi Subawickrama. Dr. Sugi is a licensed psychotherapist, TEDx speaker, and researcher. She's a certified substance abuse clinician in New York and internationally, whose educational journey in learning coping strategies and leadership skills have taken her all over the world. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with her and hope you all enjoy it as well. Let's go check it out. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Dr. Sugi Subawickrama, a licensed psychotherapist in New York and New Jersey. Dr. Sugi has worked in behavioral health, mental health, research, and substance abuse counseling for over 20 years in various treatment settings. She has delivered 2 TEDx talks so far and was accepted to the roster for the Fulbright Specialist Program, which pairs highly qualified U.S. academics and professionals with host institutions abroad to share their expertise. Now, a part of the show, we often talk about, we did a special series on Mental Health Awareness Month, and mental health is a huge theme for our show. And so I wanted to bring her perspective on the show, and I'm really excited to have her join. So Dr. Sugi, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Brian. I heard a lot about your program, and I was waiting, I think 7-8 months to be there. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad to hear that. It means word's getting out there, right? Word is getting out there. So I like that. And, before we kind of get into some of the work that you do, tell us a little bit about, your work journey and some of the things you've been passionate about educationally and professionally.
Yes, thank you. And I want to correct one thing. I think because we connected last, I did so far 3 TEDx talks now.
Oh, I missed it. Okay.
Yes, and I was able to attend the TEDx, the main event, through my the TEDx translation in the Canada for 5 days as well. Yes, that's just
nice.
additional note. And
Congrats.
Your question, yes. My field is mental health. I'm coming from beautiful island called Sri Lanka. Most people maybe don't hear about it, and they think we are part of India. No, we are small island, shape is like my hand. And in my country, it's a taboo to talk about mental health. When I very first time said when I want to study about it, my mom said, "You crazy?" But I did not give up because my country has 30 years of war, and we have tsunami, we have multiple things. I saw how people are suffering from that, the need of it. Then my journey started, I started my bachelor's there. Then I went to learn in India, England, and at last in the United States and all these countries, because the need is there. People are prone to talk about it, Brian, most of the times, most of the issues. What we do is the most important thing. Therefore, at that time, brave young woman took that step to break many barriers in cultural and in family and many barriers, and took that step. Do I regret about it? Hell no.
No, I love that. And, and so one of the things you mentioned, right? So I'm always curious how folks get into the mental health field. And so you mentioned that, and look, whether it's in America, Sri Lanka, and other places, sometimes mental health can be that taboo topic. And so when you think about your entrance into this space, despite what, mom may have been saying, what were some of the barriers that you encountered as you were navigating working in this field?
There are many. Each country operates differently, right? My country, being in the mental health field in Sri Lanka, is a barrier. The culture, the stigma is across the board, right? And nowadays people want money, right? Therefore, people looking for jobs where they can get money, right? Sure, and my goal is little different than that. I want to be the voice for the people who does not have a voice, right? And every single day I do my even private practice, I see how much some people have their like just smile for the world, but how much they internally suppress their feelings and suffering. That's where I decided to come there. Resources wise, it's based on the country. Stigma, as I said, all over the place. And sometimes a lack of understanding among the people. Maybe you are the first generation, right? Your parents does not have understanding. You need the need, you want to do it, you know everything, but the parents, right? Therefore, and the media nowadays, like in United States, yes, we talk a lot about mental health, but I'm not sure all the other countries we talk about it. It's like having that need. That's where I see challenges always there. It's unique to the each country. How you maneuver through this process matters the success. I hope it makes sense.
No, no, definitely it does. And so, I got my show origin from really the pandemic, right? The Great Resignation and all those things. That's how my show was built. And so I always like to take guests back to that time. March 2020, we're introduced to COVID. One of the things that I noticed in your work is how you help individuals really recover and build their lives from devastation that's caused by traumatic events, right? Like you mentioned, war or natural disasters, like you mentioned, tsunami and these types of things. So tell me about how you think the pandemic parallels to these types of events.
Yeah, it's unique, right? Nowadays, DEI is the fancy word, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. I do not know. Sometimes I feel that do we really understand each other? Brian, you are different than me, right? Our approaches, our upbringings, what I went through my life, maybe you do not know. Therefore, how I see any traumatic event, including COVID, right? All the events every individual go through is unique and different. Therefore, how I approach people ask, what is the strategy you use? Like, yes, we have evidence based, proved like therapeutic approaches, cognitive behavior, psychoanalytic. But when it comes for me, what I do first, I want to understand you. For a really good short example, I'll give it to you. When we had the tsunami in my country, when I'm talking about it, like I get goosebumps. And some people cannot imagine. People go to the flea market, mom, dad, and kids holding their hand, and unexpectedly water comes. Mom and dad washed away. Kid maybe end up at top of a tree or something. Only the person who survived, that kid, right? When we try to use all the therapeutic technologies, nothing works, right? All the approaches, nothing works for the kids who survived without having anybody. At last, Brian, we have to use a story. It's about a cat who lost the home, and then at last, how that kid was the cat got a new home. How that cat is happy, right? Therefore, the storytelling is something in my culture we do because we have extended families. We always telling stories in the school, our Sunday schools. That works for that culture, right? Therefore, it's same for individuals. My perspective is whoever use whatever in when it comes to mental health, even fear for COVID, even fear for anything, sexual abuse. I worked with the people who went through, right? We have to go deep down their skin level and understand and who they are, what is their values, what is their beliefs. If we are not understanding that, how many evidence-based approaches there, I don't think it works. Makes sense?
No, it does. It definitely does. Now I'd love to talk a little bit about, your practice before we talk a little bit about, your coaching business a little later. But so talk to us more about, your practice and the types of topics that you most often speak about out there on the circuit.
Yeah, I I work across the board. anybody, any human. In the past, I worked with kids who diagnosed with autism, right? I have still stretch marks. I went to the houses and worked with them and, ABA therapy with the psychologist. Now anymore, I don't with kids, and I have my own kids. And now I worked with adults like 18 and above, and youth, men, women, couples, individuals, geriatric, anybody went through the trauma, went through the abuse, substance abuse. I have different certification for national and international. For substance abuse, I worked everybody. And this, after you asked the previous question about COVID, I see something very different now. The virtual therapy and approach by the youth, I see
Mm.
lots of increase by the youth recently. Previously, when it in person, I did not see that, Brian. Like, there are specific places people has to go, like a youth or something, parents pushed. I saw lots of youth getting their initiative come there, and it's some of the kids who, I cannot say kids, but youth, what they go through is like, it's a huge need, huge problem. I see how many kids, they are cutting themselves, they are suppressing their feelings. How much due to all these COVID happens, they don't have that social interaction, they do not have coping mechanisms or coping skills, how to maneuver through this process. Therefore, they became very vulnerable. Only resource is that social media. And I do not think they are used to have that mindset. All right, this is me versus me, how to me getting better, that concept. Now I know it's like hybrid, people moving towards it. Therefore, that's the new trend I see within the my in practice, like what's happening before COVID and now.
Yeah, that's a great point you raised. I had a guest in season 2, Kristen Weisdack, who talked a lot about, because a lot of things went remote, obviously during COVID, the youth and their lack of social emotional growth is something that truthfully we're seeing now, but it's only going to be something that's exacerbated over these next few years. And so I find that concept very, very fascinating. And so you mentioned something that she raised as well. One of the things I often see you talk about too is, and I think about this with COVID, but is resilience, right? It's a word that sometimes gets used a bit too much, right? But on its core, we understand what resilience is. What is your philosophy, or talk to us a little bit about your philosophy on building somebody's resilience?
Yeah, I have a theme, right? I always say hope for the best, cope with the rest, right?
Oh, I
And
like that.
yes, and that's my philosophy in life, right? And in my case, poverty is one of the things, Brian, I had. My dad died when I was 3 years old. My mom ended up being with my brother, 1 years old. And in my culture, do not get married again, right? Therefore, poverty is really, really impacted me. That's where I developed that mindset of never give up. In the other words, here we say fancy word, resilience, right? And in my case, it has many barriers. My second language is English, and multiple things. I end up having 4.0 GPA in my doctorate, right? What I'm going to say here, not to brag about me, my if you want to successful in your life, just tap to your heart, tap to your mind, who you are. Just identify what are my pros, what are my cons, what are the areas I should improve. We are really jumping to figure it out what is our negatives. How many times we step back and say how many positives we have. Start believing yourself. That's super important. When people knock me down, pull from my leg, if I stop, like in my country, there's a saying, right? Don't stop every dog bark at you, you're never going to end your journey, right? I cannot do that. Like, everybody saying something and about my skin color, how I talk, how I dress, and I have 2 miscarriages, not having kid, and many things. What I did, I focus on myself, who Sugi is, what I'm capable enough. Sure, I cried. I'm not a superwoman. Sure, I use different mechanisms. I have a supportive family, supportive husband. I use all the things what I can use. But when I understand who I am, I got my wings back. I can make any decision, good or bad, ugly. I told few minutes ago, one of the hardest career decision. I made it. Therefore, to achieve your resilience, achieve your success, my message to anybody, just know yourself. Do not let define other people who you are. Know yourself and then move on with that. That
Yeah.
makes sense, Brian.
No, it does. No, it definitely does. I saw, on this similar theme of resilience, one of your TED Talks, I don't know if it might have been your first, but you mentioned some evidence based research that talks about first generation immigrants and how they have like this lower risk of mental illness compared to their US counterparts. Could you tell us a little bit about why that is?
Yes, that's multiple reasons. Still, I strongly believe, firmly believe we need more research in immigrants' resilience. People talk about immigrants, and I do not know they talk about their resilience, right? And they really, really need that. Area is really huge gap. I see it. There are multiple reasons, right? As I said, like maybe there's no option, Brian, right? Swim or sink, right? When I come to United States, I cannot like go backwards, right? It's the situation. I have to go back worse than this. Therefore, I have to do this good, bad, ugly, right? And today my son is like he born here, and they have many opportunities there, right? For me, there's nothing. That's one. And the other thing is, it's our mindset, right? When people go through challenging times, I personally believe it's our immunity, right? We build up really hard immunity. Whatever happens, you can like face it. I'm not saying that we are not going to have break points, but we have it. Sometimes some people say like, if they say something, right, some people take it very, very serious and go to the extremes. For me, ah, and something, I can move on because I went through like many, many hard situations in my life, right? The third thing I say, that extended family concept, that is our therapy. We did not pay for therapy. We did not go to therapy. My therapy is my grandparents, my uncles and aunties. If somebody did bad things in my school, I come back really, I cannot stand on that kid. That's I expressing myself. I have an outlet there, right? And therefore finding your outlet is super important here. That's why I have a job and you pay for me to have the therapy, right? That is the third thing. And the other thing is activities. It's we are so into technological world. I think we are missing from the human touch. And in our country still we have that human connection. Kids go to the village and they play with each other. We have the in the temple. I'm born Buddhist, practicing Buddhist. We go to the temple, have food, and New Year whole village together having activities. I think that allow us to be healthy in our minds. Here, how many things like social media can go, right? Go up and down,
Right.
up and down, up and down, right? It's killing your time. Therefore, I think, as I said, your mindset, where you are coming from, your social support system, and all the challenges you went through, all these areas help, I think, immigrants to survive in these kind of situations and resilient and be have a healthy mindset. Make sense?
No, definitely. No, it does. In your other talk, one of the things I found interesting is you mentioned this stat. I'm going to make sure I read it so I don't get it wrong, right? But you said the National Council of Behavioral Health identified that 70% of U.S. individuals at some point in their life will face a traumatic
Trauma.
experience.
Mhm.
and you have this talk called Rising Above Trauma. And you mentioned this when, like I mentioned, I thought it was fascinating when I watched it. And so what are some of your thoughts on why don't we talk about trauma and traumatic experiences enough?
Yeah. The thing is, where is the outlet? Like, where is the forum for that, right? And do we even, you and me, because you are a professional, like well known person, you give this opportunity people to talk about it. Are we creating same environment in our families? Are we creating same environment in our workplace? Are we creating same environment in the schools, in our societies? I don't see that. If something happens, if you come back and tell in the workplace, I have this, what's going to happen? Do you want to go to EAP? Right? And then that's it, right? Do we have any kind of, when we have monthly meetings, weekly meetings, huge healthcare companies, huge mental health organizations, rather than mental health day is October and this is what we do? That's it. Is that enough? Is that creating a safer environment people to come there? I don't think so, Brian. Therefore, the groundwork, grassroots level work should start. That's where we can talk. I make my decision. No matter what, I'll go there and tell my story. It takes some courage to come out and tell, where people think, Dr. Sugi, ooh, she is perfect. No, I am poor person coming. I want to empower somebody. I want to encourage. That's my goal, but not everybody. Some people has to go back to their own cultures. Some people has to go back to their own workplace. Therefore, I think the biggest issue why people not coming out, I want to check myself. Am I that person? And having the open hands to somebody to come and say, you can do the same. If we all do that, if we all take that into, people will more going to talk about the trauma, their mental health.
Yeah, and and if you don't mind sharing, you have your own trauma survivor story that you often talk about. You mind sharing that on with us on the show?
Yes, of course, sure. And I had, like, in my culture, they define the success by having a family, right? It's not defined by the career or something. And 10 years, we married 23 years, and 10 years I want to achieve my own goals. I want to have some money. I want to have the things I did not have. I want to travel, house, like everything, right? And we were running behind it. It's not going to, I don't have a magic wand. Yup, next my house, next like that. We have to work our back offs to achieve these goals. Time passed by. What can I do about it, Brian? After, when we decided to have a family after 10 years, 11th year miscarriage, 12th year miscarriage, people are like, oh, if you have anything else, what is the purpose of your life without having a kid? You are not successful. What can I, it's my body. When I go to the doctors, they are saying you're too stressed, nothing medically wrong with you. I'm helpless. I cried. I did every single thing I can. And, like, therefore, I want to tell the people, do not anybody to define your success. What about one day if I did not have a child? Now, knock wood, I have a beautiful, like, intelligent, good kid, 10 years old. And what about what if I did not have that? Am I worthless? Am I meaningless? Am I not going to be happy? Why? Who who have that parameters? That's where I decided, no, I'm going to go there and say, it's your decision. You make the decision, and you do not have to explain to the whole freaking world, sorry for my French,
Okay.
and who I am. If you can accept me or not, I'm going to be create my internal happiness. That's where I decided that story to take it. And the last one, maybe you did not get the opportunity to listen, that's about my skin color. People bullied me a lot because of my skin color. They call me ever ready cat. Maybe there's a battery, ever ready battery, and in
Mm-hmm.
there's a black cat. People call me. What I did was, at that time I did not know this was a coping mechanism. I turned the table. I was like, oh my god, they're saying because of the power. All right, let me start running. I became an athlete, and I have like a colors in my university life, and I my event is hurdling and long distance running. That was my coping mechanism, coping skills, because I saw same people bullied me and cheering me when I'm running, when I'm getting the awards. And I was like, what the world is this? And therefore, what we have to do is, how you going to turn this table and write your next story. I really love that Michelle Obama wrote it in her book. And your story is what you have, right? And therefore, write it whatever you want in there, and because take the ownership. That's what I'm doing. I take my ownership and move on.
No, I love that. And one, I appreciate you being willing to share your story here. I know you've shared it on a few TEDx's, but definitely I appreciate you being open and vulnerable with us and sharing that here. And one of the things you mentioned, right? And I'm sure there's I don't know the exact stats, but miscarriage is something that happens frequently, and it's obviously not talked about enough. But clearly, it's a we talk about mental health and things like that, and people experiencing loss. What are some of the things that or steps that you can share with others who may have had a similar experience, and on how you cope and or deal with loss?
Yeah, the same thing, Brian. Loss impact different ways, right? I At that time I was very young. I went to India. I studied about grievance and the parents who lost their kids due to cancer, right? And how to, because today I work with the kid, and next day I see their ashes in a small box, right? And even I cannot now talk. It's many years that, because it was something, because I lost my dad when I was 3 years old. I don't have even memory, right? Everywhere that loss is there, right? And it impacts me. The loss can impact people in a different ways. I'm not sure we take that time to process that feelings, right? Lots of people comes to me when I ask them to do one of the tasks is somebody lost, like, can you write a letter to them? Right? They were like, really? What? And then they come back and say, I cried, I was angry, like different feelings. I ask them to highlight what few areas and bring it to the therapy session, and we can process it. Therefore, when it comes to loss, some people just act like nothing happens, they move on. Some people just take it really hard, bad, and go to the extreme. Some people manage them. The most important thing is how it impacting in your daily functioning. I want you to look back and take some time. Is it every single day, though you go to work, you remembering your husband who lost months ago? I need you to take that time. Just go there, talk to some professionals, right? And it's not a failure. It's not like you losing your self-esteem, self-confidence. No, because it's that the memory. Can we erase it like the computer reset button? There's nothing like that in the human brains. And I don't know, in the future they will figure it out. Therefore, I want everybody, when it loss happens, think about how it impact you, how it impact your body. Sometimes its mind gives some the clues. When you think about your lost kid, your whole body become froze. I want you to go to professional help and figure it out what you can do about it, and do something. Some people do go to the social events and do things, some donations, having their organizations. Some people peacefully cry themselves, have their own outlet at home. Whatever works for you. I do not have a specific way to say do this. But only message I can say, please, please reach out when you feel that impacting in your daily lives.
No, that's great advice. And now, talk to us about your newest and latest venture. You started your own coaching business. So when we first met, you didn't have this. Now, you've had some changes happen in your life. So tell us, what's this new venture you have going on? And yeah, share with our audience.
Yes, thank you. It was a really, really, really hard decision. And one point, my husband got sick, and I have to go through multiple challenges in my life. And I worked for really top healthcare company, and I was like, am I happy here? Am I achieving what I want to achieve? Or am I going to value the money? It was money versus me, right? And I decided to give up the money and focus on myself and my family and the happiness. I started that coaching and consulting with Dr. Sugi. The theme tagline is healthy body, peaceful mind, holistic you. And therefore I am there, like I'm not like disregard the value of having the physical health, right? You have to have a healthy body. I always incorporate that in. And I want to have people to have a peaceful mind. I think if you collaborate both, we can have a holistic view. Therefore, I do public speaking workshops in the universities, and I went to Sri Lanka. Actually, all the media outlets I was appeared, and in many areas, to talk about mental health in Sri Lanka and bring back what I learned from United States. And I have my own YouTube channel. I always in my cultural language talk about like the importance of it. I became a TEDx translator. Then I can translate TED Talks into my cultural language. People can hear it. People who they don't know much about English, and therefore I go as much as I can. And my son is 10 years old, age 9. He was able to do his first TED talk about the bullying because he was bullied. Yeah, he's a big man. Everybody, my husband's family, everybody is 6 footers. And the kids came to him and say, you walk like a grandpa, act like a grandpa, you look like a grandpa. And he came home, he said, Mommy, I want to cry from my heart, the eyes, but I cry from my heart, not from eyes. I said, what you mean? And we had the discussion. Then I said, Warren, you have two options. Either you can take this one and just sad, or you can take this opportunity and empower others. You decide what you want to do. He wrote his story, and he went there and he did his first TEDx talk, and and I was able to work with him. I said, give back to the community. He was a presidential the social service award winner. And that's where I'm saying, even the kids, I'm not only talking about the kids, I'm working with even my own kid. I want to be an example. I'm not talking about all these things in my life for other people. I work towards it. I give back to the communities. Therefore, that's my message for the world, Brian. Do whatever you can do.
Yeah. And your one of your taglines too, which I love, is this saying that you want to be a voice for the voiceless, right? And help others do the same in their communities. And it sounds like you're doing that obviously yourself, but with your son and all of those things. And curious, how and where can people start to be that in their own communities, right? What advice would you give?
Yeah, just be yourself wherever you can be. Your community means maybe your workplace, right? What you can do. Holiday season come. How many people living by themselves? Holiday season, right? Just be that person to, hey, you have any plans? You want to talk? Whatever. It doesn't have to be have your own company and do mega events. I don't mean that. In your communities, go there and you see kids, they are struggling with homework. You are a teacher. You can have like 30 minutes in Sundays in the Sunday school. Do that. That is where you becoming the voice. I'm not saying people to wait till the perfect moment. COVID shows us no guarantee for tomorrow. Therefore, do whatever you can do this moment. See that, do that. Like, always say, if you see something, say something. I
Say
take
something.
it to the next level. If you see something, say something, do something.
I like that. I like that. And as you think about this latest venture, right? What type of impact are you hoping to have in the future?
Yeah, I in the past I am a chairwoman for VFW Veterans for Foreign Affairs for the Youth as well. I do lots of like volunteer events. I have to survive, therefore for sure. I do some of the things like and charge money whoever has it. And the impact, I'm going to do the same way. I'm not going to change myself. When I see something, I go there, I talk to them. I see in my son's school right now, they don't have the debating or speaking. Last week, I went there. I talked to the Toastmasters Club. I went there. I'm going to get the membership. I'm going to ask my son Warren to like start their youth event. Do there. Right. When I see it, it was really challenging. It's hard, sometimes physically tiring. But when I see it, I do my own research. See, it goes by my values and my beliefs and our family values and beliefs. If yes, I will take slow but steady approach to achieve it. There are failures, yes, of course. It's okay. I learn through it, move it. That's what my goal in my life, Brian.
I like that. And one of the things I've been adding in for season 3 of the show is really a question for me, right? So when you think about anything, some of the work I'm doing or whatever, what's one question that you have for me that I could potentially answer?
Wow. That is huge. I know you are in a leadership role. My question to you is, as a leader in the healthcare sector, what are the strategic decisions or approaches you take it in to enhance employee mental health?
Great question. So we have I do work for a very large healthcare system here in New York, and we have a variety of ways that we are trying to help folks make sure that they're doing that. There's a whole host of we have connections with a few different online therapy platforms that we work with, and also too, what I think has been great is I've seen the system become much more intentional with actually talking with folks, right? And, beyond surveys, but yes, surveys help. Talking with folks about the things that they actually need and want, right? And so this could mean the creation of different affinity groups that folks, you talk about building more of a sense of community in spaces, allowing folks to do that. We have a huge, we call them BERGs, right? But business employee resource groups is kind of the phrase that we use. But we have a huge collection and community of bergs for virtually everybody. And I think that is something, I know we're talking about mental health, but I think that is something that helps folks feel connected in such an organization that's large, right? I mean, we're 85,000 plus, and it's truthfully like a small city, well, bigger than some small cities. And you can often kind of get lost in this space. So we have a variety of things from the actual platforms. Obviously we have EAP. A lot of organizations have EAP, but we have external online platforms for folks to enhance their mental health. We're also one, I think, you mentioned about folks being more open, especially the youth being more open about these types of issues. And we have employees who are becoming more open about that and speaking with leaders and their managers about the things that they need or things that the teams need. And I think people are becoming more adept at handling those successfully. So I'm optimistic about where we go with that in the future. And I think that's a great question that you ask. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you. Very happy to hear that. Lots of places, that is one of the areas lacking, I see, but truly appreciate all your effort and wish you all the best in that area as well.
No, thank you. So look, Dr. Sugi, I appreciate you coming on the show. Great meeting you. I'm excited to hear about your new news. And I do need to check out this third TED Talk of yours. I actually missed that, right? So I will definitely check that out. And would love for you to share where our listeners can support some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, like they can connect me with like all the areas in social media. I'm not Instagram, I'm not in Twitter, but I'm in LinkedIn. I have my YouTube channel. If you search me anywhere, Dr. Sugi, and I'm in Facebook, I have my Facebook group and the page as well. And that's all the areas you can find me. I have my own web page as well, and LinkedIn is the place like professionals, anybody wants to contact me, all the other people as well. Like, if you see me somewhere, you see the need, I cannot promise you I'm going to respond to you like that moment, but I will eventually respond to you. And like happy to connect with anybody who's looking for anywhere to hold hands and go this journey.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that. All right. Well, look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank Dr. Sugi for joining us today. All of her information, everywhere you can find her, will be in our show notes. So I hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Dr. Sugi.
Thank you so much, Brian. Truly appreciate.
Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.